Exposed, Undercover Mafia boss discovers hidden truths in life-changing encounter with Waitress. Jake the Hammer Marino sat in the corner booth of Rosie's Diner, a king hiding in plain sight. The neon glow of the open sign flickered above, casting a shimmering light across 4 mica tables and bustling waitresses. Here, amid the aromatic wafts of bacon and coffee, he felt the weight of his criminal empire pressing against his chest. A world spun on loyalty, power, and fear. But in this diner, where laughter mingled with clinking dishes, he found a flicker of something else. Hope.as he absent-mindedly stirred his coffee. His gaze landed on Clara. She moved like a dancer between tables, her apron stained, but her spirit undeterred. There was a soft song on her lips, a melody that pulled at something buried deep within him. Clara was a single mother, juggling the burdens of caring for an ailing father and a bright little girl who needed her fiercely. Each time Jake caught her eye, he felt a connection, an invisible thread tying their lives together, pulling him closer to the warmth that radiated from her even in her struggles. "Coffee refill?" Clara asked, her smile warm despite the shadows under her eyes. He nodded, entranced. "You work hard." "It shows," he murmured, even as the dark thoughts of his life threatened to bubble up. Clara's grit reminded him of the loyalty he owed his own family. This woman was a fighter, and her spirit shone through the exhaustion. He began to share bits of himself, cloaked in truth and fiction, drawing her into a world of secrets and whispers that left them both yearning for more. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Hours passed as they exchanged stories over steaming mugs, laughing softly as a group of regulars shared their latest woes. Clara spoke of her dreams to escape the cycle, to turn her daughter's future into something bright. Jake watched her, heart racing. Her words struck deep into his stony chest, igniting something he thought was long extinguished. But danger lingered just outside the diner doors. Rival gang members prowled through the city streets, snatching at his empire with cunning smiles and dark intentions. The walls felt closer, shadows stretching menacingly toward Clara as if they sensed his presence. Jake's pulse quickened. He was entangled in a web of choices and chaos. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from the life he led, yet he was now central to the danger that loomed. The thought of her little girl sleeping peacefully, unaware of the turmoil surrounding them, tore at him. Loyalty to his family wrestled with a growing bond to Clara. Could he leave them exposed? As the diner emptied and the clock ticked louder, Jake leaned closer, an urge to share more. "Can I tell you a secret?" he whispered, and for a moment, the world faded around them. What he felt for Clara was more than calculated risks. It was honesty, renewal, a shot at redemption he never dreamed he'd want. His heart pounded as the tension thickened. Could he become the protector he didn't even know he yearned to be? The air crackled, charged with intimacy and danger. Clara gazed at him, anticipation shimmering in her eyes, unaware of the storm brewing just outside. The diner, their refuge, now felt like a ticking clock, pushing him toward an inevitable decision that would shake his very existence. As the clock struck midnight, sirens wailed in the distance, cutting through the warmth of their shared moments with icy reminders of reality. Jake's resolve solidified. He would have to choose. Would he embrace the shadows or emerge into the light, risking everything for the promise of hope? The diner hummed with unresolved echoes, leaving Jake at the precipice of change. The question lingered in the air, heavy with promise. Can a man like him ever truly be redeemed? Jake's breath caught in his throat as the sirens drew closer, each wail slicing through the possibilities swirling between him and Clara. The moment felt suspended, filled with unspoken words and electric tension. He fought the instinct to pull back, to retreat into the shadows where he felt safest. But Clara's eyes, bright with hope and trust, tethered him. They were a lifeline he hadn't realized he needed. "I don't want to be a secret." "Not anymore," he confessed, his voice rough like gravel. This was a different kind of vulnerability, one that felt foreign but liberating. Clara's smile faltered, uncertainty clouding her features. "A secret? What do you mean?" Jake swallowed hard. "I'm not just some guy coming in for coffee. He hesitated, weighing the implications of laying bare his life before her. "I'm not who you think I am." The flickering diner lights caught her brow furrowing. She leaned in, her voice a whisper that felt fragile in the air. "Then who are you, Jake? Really?" He wrestled with the truth, grappling with the fierce need to shield her from the danger he'd invited. "I'm a man caught in a world of violence. I'm part of something dark, something that could hurt you and your daughter." Saying it out loud felt like slicing into his own flesh, but he pressed on. "I'm a mafia boss." Shock flashed across her face. For a brief moment, the world outside the diner faded. Gone were the clattering plates and murmurs of late-night conversations. All that remained were Jake and the weight of his confession. "That's not who I want to be," he continued, urgency pouring from him. "Those aren't the choices I want to make. I want a different life." Clara's expression shifted from disbelief to a deep sadness, her eyes glossing over with unspilled tears. "But you can't just walk away, can you?" "No," he admitted, frustration bubbling up inside him. "It's a web of loyalty, of obligation. But every day I spend with you, I question everything I thought I knew." The sound of footsteps drew Jake's attention. A figure loomed just outside the diner, shadowed by the neon glow. His stomach twisted in knots. Rival factions were not just a story, they were a very real threat. Clara's voice trembled, pulling him back to her. Desperation mingled with resolve in her eyes. "What are you going to do?" He could feel the pressure mounting, every heartbeat echoing in his ears. "I need to get you and your daughter away from here. I won't let you be caught in the crossfire." Across the street, the figure moved closer, a dark silhouette that sent adrenaline pulsing through him. Clara's concern pierced through the fog in his mind. "You can't just decide everything for us," she replied, folding her arms defensively. "I have a right to know my own choices." Panic gripped him, but beneath it, the warmth of Clara's conviction began to unravel his defenses. "I'm sorry. You're right. He raked a hand through his hair, frustration beginning to boil over. "I don't want to choose between you and the life I know." The diner door chimed as a whirlwind of cold air swept through the entrance. Jake's body tensed as three figures stepped inside, their eyes scanning the room. He recognized them immediately, a cold shiver running through his veins. "Get down!" Jake shouted, instinct taking over. He surged forward, pulling Clara close to him, ready to shield her with everything he had. But Clara, her spirit ablaze, pushed against him. "No, I want to hide." They stood together, a fragile alliance against the chaos that was about to erupt. In that heart-stopping moment, Jake knew he had crossed a line, and every decision he made from here would forever alter them both. The sirens outside harmonized with the pounding of his heart, the anticipation of conflict mounting. As the shadows approached, one question lingered in the charged atmosphere. Would he stand to protect the spark of hope he'd found, or would he let the darkness consume them both? The door swung wide, creaking like an old hinge, and Jake's heart thundered in response. The three figures strolled in as if they owned the place, casually scanning the room with predatory intensity. Jake kept Clara close, his body acting as a shield. The clattering of coffee cups stilled, the air heavy with trepidation. "Jake," one of them called, a thick-set man with a scar tracing his cheek. His tone was smooth, almost mocking. "We've been looking for you." In that moment, the thrumming of uncertainty turned into a cold, hard fear. Jake's mind raced with possibilities. He cursed his inability to leave this life behind. The sirens continued to wail outside, a soundtrack of chaos creeping closer. "Clara," he whispered urgently, "stay behind me. Do not move." She nodded, but he could see the fierce determination in her eyes. She wasn't backing down despite the danger. Something inside him surged an unshakable need to protect her, to shield her from the darkness of his world. The thick-set man approached them slowly, with a casual confidence that sent alarm bells ringing in Jake's head. "You really thought you'd just disappear, huh? You think we'd let you off that easy?" He laughed a low, gravelly sound. "You know that that's not how it works." "Enough," Jake snapped, stepping forward. He felt the weight of many eyes on him. "This is between us. You don't need to involve her." The man tilted his head slightly, observing him as a predator might observe prey. "But it seems she's the only thing keeping you grounded. And in our line of work, weakness is a dangerous thing." Jake's fists clenched. He could feel adrenaline coursing through his veins, molten anger merging with fear. He wouldn't let these men manipulate him. Not now, not when Clara was so close. "You don't want this fight," he replied, hoping to stall for time, to keep a lid on the brewing storm. But Clara spoke up, her voice unwavering. "What are you doing to him?" "To us?" Fear sparked in her eyes, but she stood firm. "You can't just come in here and threaten him. He's more than you know." The man's gaze darted between the two of them, shock momentarily flaring in his eyes. He laughed again, this time more pointedly, as if Clara's defiance amused him. "Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea what you're talking about. He's not a hero here. He's part of the problem." Jake's heart sank, but also ignited a fire within him. He had to fight against this narrative, fight for Clara, for a future they deserved. "I'm trying to change," he insisted, his voice rising. "You don't get to twist who I am." The tension crackled as the men exchanged glances, calculating their next move. The atmosphere around him felt thick and charged, his instincts screaming at him to act, to protect. Suddenly, the ambient sound of the diner faded into a surreal background hum. All that mattered was the moment, the stakes hanging in the air like a tightrope. Clara's eyes remained locked onto his, giving him strength, but also a complex mix of helplessness and resolve. Then the thick-set man took a step closer, a challenge surfacing in his demeanor. "You think you can just walk away from this? From us? It doesn't work that way, Jake. You're tangled up in this life, and it'll swallow you whole." Jake's breath hitched. For Clara, for her daughter, he had to fight. He glanced at her, hoping she could see the desperation in his eyes, the willingness to do whatever it took. He had to make a choice, and that moment of truth was rapidly approaching. "Enough games," he commanded, channeling all his resolve. "If you want to fight, I'm right here. But know this, I won't let you hurt her." The man's smirk faded, replaced by a cold glare. "Then you've made your choice." As the tension spiraled, Jake braced himself for what was to come, a tight knot forming in his stomach. He felt the world around him balance on a knife's edge, and he knew that the next few moments could shatter everything they had tried to build. But in that fierce moment of confrontation, amidst the brewing storm, a faint echo of hope flickered in his heart. Could he truly protect them both, or would this be the end of everything? The thick-set man leaned in closer, a shadow draping over Jake as the lights flickered subtly, casting an uneasy glow across the diner. The clattering of dishes resumed in some distant corner, but for Jake, the world narrowed into silence, just him and the threat before him. "What is it gonna be, Jake?" The man taunted, his breath brimming with menace. "You know we don't just walk away. You can't just hide behind her skirts." A surge of anger bubbled up within Jake. Clara was not to be used as a pawn. "I won't let you talk about her like that. You think you can intimidate me? You're wrong." Clara shifted slightly, her eyes starting to him, searching for strength, courage, support, anything to hold on to. In that moment, Jake saw the fear in her expression, but also something stronger, a fierce resolve. He felt a new tide rising in him, inspired by her bravery. "Let us not waste time," the thick-set man said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "This isn't just about you anymore. You've drawn a line, and you need to understand what that means." Before Jake could respond, the man reached out, his hand clenching into a fist that looked ready to strike. Jake instinctively pushed Clara behind him, not thinking, just acting on the instinct to protect. Then everything erupted. The diner seemed to explode in a flurry of movement. The heaviness that had wrapped around them split as fists flew and bodies collided. Jake was propelled into action, adrenaline blaring through his senses. He swung, his fist meeting the threat before him, a punch fueled by fear and desperation. The thick-set man staggered, but quickly regained his footing, his eyes narrowing in a mix of anger and surprise. "You really think you can take us on?" He sneered, lunging forward. Jake didn't flinch. He felt nothing but the urge to defend. He pivoted, unleashing every ounce of pent-up frustration, anger, and desire to shield Clara as if every movement was choreographed by an unseen force. Clara stood frozen for a moment, her heart racing, watching the chaos unfold before her. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice slicing through the melee. "Get out! We can't do this here." But Jake wasn't listening. He was too immersed in the fight, too driven by the fear of what would happen if he didn't protect her. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every decision he made pressing down on him. As blows were exchanged, the other two men advanced, but Jake was fueled by something beyond self-preservation. They were here for his life, his choices, and by extension, for Clara's future. "I'm done running," he shouted, catching one opponent off balance and driving him against the curved booth. "You don't get to control me anymore." But just then a loud crash echoed through the diner. One of the glass display cases shattered, sending shards glinting across the floor. The sound drew horrified gasps and startled cries from the few diners who had remained, their faces a mixture of confusion and fear as the chaos unraveled. Jake's heart sank as he realized they were drawing attention more than he had bargained for. "Clara!" he yelled again, urgency bleeding into his voice. "We need to go. Now!" A flicker of understanding passed between them. Clara moved to grab her purse, the realization of what this moment meant washing over her. They were at a tipping point. This fight could shatter everything as easily as the glass behind her. But the thick-set man wasn't ready to let them walk away. "You think this ends here? This is just the beginning for you, Jake," he spat, riled and relentless. With a sharp intake of breath, Jake prepared himself, knowing what would come next. The air was thick with electricity, and he could feel it, the unyielding weight of what lay ahead. As Jake braced for another round, the diner door swung open, bringing with it a rush of wind and a figure silhouetted against the outside light. In that instant, hope flickered against the grim backdrop of chaos. But who was coming through that door? It felt like a moment suspended in time, and Jake could only wonder if this new arrival would be a savior or a harbinger of more trouble. The door swung wide, revealing a woman with bright red hair, unmistakable even in the dim light. Jake squinted against the sudden brightness, his heart pounding in his chest. It was Angela, a waitress from the diner, known for her quick smile and easier laughter. She was supposed to work the late shift, not step into this minefield of chaos. "Angela, get out!" Clara shouted, panic fueling her words as she moved to shield Jake, but he pushed her gently aside. Angela had seen it all. The punch, the broken glass, and now the thick-set man's menacing stance. Yet, instead of retreating, she stepped further inside, her eyes scanning the scene with remarkable clarity. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded. The thick-set man turned, momentarily distracted. "Stay out of this, lady. You don't want to get hurt." Jake felt a rush of gratitude for Angela's arrival, but he knew this wasn't the time for gratitude. "We need to leave now," he urged, casting a worried glance at Clara before focusing back on Angela. But Angela's gaze hardened. "Not until I know what's happening here." Jake had to make a choice. Should he rush them out or try to explain? The anxiety pounding within him twisted his stomach. He had to protect Clara and now Angela too. "It's not safe. I'm not letting you all just disappear into the night." Angela cut him off, her voice steady yet fierce. She squared her shoulders, standing defiantly between the thick-set man and the way out. The man laughed bitterly, surveying the scene like a predator sizing up prey. "You think you can protect him?" He stepped closer, his presence suffocating. "You're gonna regret sticking your nose in this, sweetheart." There was something terrifying about the confidence that radiated from him. Jake felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins, mixing with a desperate need to keep everyone safe. "Angela, please just go." He reached out to grab her arm, but she shrugged him off, standing her ground. "I'm not afraid of you," Angela shot back, her voice rising. "This isn't just about you, Jake. It's about all of us fighting back." Jake saw the resolve in her eyes, the strength she had always carried but rarely showed. In that moment, he realized she was right. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It was about Clara, about Angela, about everyone who had ever been pushed into a corner. With a shared inhale, they squared their shoulders together, united against the looming threat. The diner was small, cramped, and slowly filling with frightened faces that peeked from behind booths and tables, the tension palpable. "Looks like you've got a crowd," the thick-set man sneered, but his confidence wavered slightly. "Let us see how brave you are when the fists start flying." Jake clenched his fists, heart racing. "If it comes to that, then we'll fight together." The thick-set man's eyes darted between them, calculating. "You wouldn't really take on all of us, would you?" But the fear that had once reigned in Jake was now replaced by a burning determination. "Try us," he spat, surprise ringing in his own voice. Clara stood firm beside him, her hand reaching out to grasp his. In that instant, chaos surrounded them, but they stood unyielding. The other patrons had started to pull out their phones, some whispering, some moving toward the exits. One man in the back shouted, "Call the cops." The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. They were ready to support the unlikely trio. But the thick-set man still wore that sly grin. "This isn't over, Jake. You want to pit yourself against this? You better be ready for the consequences." As the tension reached its peak, blaring sirens began to pierce the air outside. Jake's heart sank as the gravity of their situation crashed into him. "Clara! Angela!" he yelled, eyeing the last possible escape route. "No!" But as they turned to flee, the thick-set man lunged forward. Everything felt like it was hanging in the balance. Would they make it out unscathed, or were they about to cross a line from which there was no return? Angela moved instinctively, grabbing Clara's arm and dragging her sideways, away from danger. The thick-set man lunged, but Jake had already stepped in between. Time slowed for Jake as he felt the air crackle with tension. He couldn't think about consequences or outcomes. He had to act. He swung his fist, catching the man off guard. The punch connected with a dull thud, and the thick-set man staggered back, surprise flashing across his face. For a moment, Jake saw all the rage, confusion, and fear in the eyes of the other patrons, just waiting. He could almost hear their collective breath hold. "Let us go," Angela urged, still holding Clara's hand tightly. The two women bolted for the door, Jake right on their heels. But the thick-set man recovered quickly, his anger igniting a fire in his eyes. "You think you're getting away that easily?" he shouted, while bolting towards them. Jake heard the distant wail of police sirens growing louder, but in that instant, it felt like they were trapped in an endless loop of chaos. The loud sound was a promise of safety, but the man blocked the exit, a formidable barrier. "Keep moving. I'll hold him off," Jake yelled, voice rising over the din. Without even thinking about it, his body moved forward again, trying to give the women a chance. "Jake, no!" Clara's voice pierced through to him, but he was already determined. He had to stand his ground. After all, this was about more than just a physical fight. It was about survival, dignity, and refusing to be another victim in the community they all had shared. With newfound adrenaline, Jake threw another punch just as the thick-set man lunged at him. But he was too caught up in his own momentum. The man missed his chance and stumbled past Jake, crashing into a nearby table. Glasses rattled and uneaten food splattered across the floor. "Go, go, go!" Jake shouted again. Angela grabbed Clara, and they dashed for the door. The sirens were so loud now Jake could almost feel their vibration shaking the floor beneath him. He pushed himself forward, adrenaline fueling him like a charged battery. He didn't care if he got hit. All that mattered was getting Clara and Angela out alive. Just as they reached the door, Jake felt a heavy hand clamping down on his shoulder. Whirling around, he saw the thick-set man's furious face, contorted with rage. He was even angrier than before. You're not going anywhere without a price. Before Jake could think, his fist flew out again, striking the man's jaw hard. But this time he felt the backlash. Pain shot up his arm as the impact vibrated through him. The thick-set man staggered back, and in that moment of weakness, Jake pushed past him. Outside, the night air hit them like a cool wave, quenching the heat of the chaos inside. Angela and Clara rushed ahead, but Jake hesitated, breathing heavily. He turned back to glance inside the diner just as the thick-set man regained his balance, glaring at him through the glass. "Jake, come on," Clara called, urgency ringing in her voice. Jake sprinted outside, heart racing. The sirens blared louder, and they could see flashing lights down the street. But before they could reach safety, the thick-set man's voice boomed behind them. "This isn't over, Jake. You can't hide from what you've started." Jake's stomach curled at the threat. What had they just set into motion? Together, the three of them ran toward the lights, but fear hung heavy in the air. Would this be the end of their struggle, or just the beginning of something more dangerous? As they turned the corner, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed a line, and there was no returning to the quiet life they once knew. What waited for them in the darkness, and how far would they have to go to protect each other? The lights of the police cars flickered behind them, painting the walls of the narrow street in shades of red and blue. Jake, Angela, and Clara's feet pounded against the pavement, the adrenaline coursing through their veins like wildfire. The echo of their breaths mingled with the distant sirens, creating a chaotic symphony of fear and urgency. "Keep going. We can't stop," Angela urged, her grip firm on Clara's hand. Clara nodded, though the fear in her eyes made Jake's heart sink. He turned to check behind them. The last thing he wanted was for the thick-set man to have followed, but as they ran, he could feel the weight of that threat hanging over them like a storm cloud ready to burst. "We need to find somewhere to hide," he finally said, looking around. They were slipping into a quieter part of town, where shadows loomed like watchful eyes. "Just a little further," Angela replied, her voice shaking slightly. He could see her mind racing, processing their escape, weighing options, but beneath it all, she too was terrified. They turned another corner, and when Jake spotted it a narrow alleyway. "Over there," he shouted, veering off towards the dark entrance. It felt like their only chance of breaking the invisible chain pulling them toward danger. Once inside, they pressed themselves against the wall, chest heaving, barely daring to breathe. The alley was damp and smelled of rain-soaked asphalt and hidden secrets. Jake moved to peek out, his heart thundering as he scanned for danger. "Do you think he followed us?" Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know," Jake replied, keeping his eyes glued to the exit. "But we have to stay quiet just in case." He could hear the distant sounds of chaos continuing on the streets, the faint shouts, the thudding of police boots, the growl of radio chatter. With every second ticking by, the uncertainty gnawed at him. What if they found the man? What if he came looking for revenge? "Jake!" Angela's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling his focus back to her. That man, what did he mean by what he said? His heart sank deeper. "I don't know, but it felt personal. It was like he wasn't just angry. He knew me." Clara's eyes widened, fear evident. "What does he want?" "I don't know," Jake murmured, feeling the panic rise again. "But we can't let him hurt you guys." Angela leaned closer, concern creasing her brow. "We have to figure out what to do next. We can't stay here forever." Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed through the alley. Jake's body tensed instinctively as he turned to see a figure moving toward them. "Stay quiet," he urged under his breath, positioning himself to shield the women. As the shadow drew closer, Jake's heart raced. He couldn't let their night end in violence again, but he didn't know who could be approaching. The figure stepped into the light, and Jake's breath caught. It was someone he knew, a figure from his past he thought he had left behind. "Jake?" The man spoke, voice lining with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" The shock of familiarity hit like a punch to the gut. Relief washed over him, but doubt lingered. Could this person help, or were they just another thread in the web of chaos that had begun with one reckless decision? "What are you doing here?" Jake asked, trying to mask his panic. "Looks like you need help," the man replied, eyes darting toward Angela and Clara before locking back onto Jake. Let us get you out of here. Jake hesitated. Who is he to trust in a moment like this? But then he glanced at Angela and Clara, fear painting their faces. Okay, he finally said, pocketing all his reservations. Let us go. As they slipped further into the shadows of the alley, Jake felt a flicker of hope, but it was overshadowed by the reality of their situation. What else was waiting in the darkness? What's really going on? Clara's voice broke through again, trembling slightly. As they moved deeper into the night, Jake felt the stakes were rising. Just what had they stumbled into, and how far would they now have to run to escape the nightmares that chased them? The alley twisted and turned like a maze, shadows dancing along the walls as Jake and the others followed the man ahead. He moved with a strange confidence, leading them deeper into a labyrinth of uncertainty. Jake's instincts were on high alert, every tread against the pavement echoing the silent warning pounding in his chest. Who are you? Jake's voice broke the tense silence, sounding more demanding than he intended. Just someone who knows more than he should, the man replied without turning around, his tone vague yet layered with meaning. Let us keep moving. Angela and Clara exchanged glances, the weight of their situation settling like an anchor. As they hurried further down the alley, Jake knew he needed to keep the focus on their safety, but unease crept back in, gnawing at him. Who is this guy? Why had he shown up at the most chaotic moment? Meanwhile, the sounds of the city buzzed just beyond their little sanctuary. Sirens wailed, voices carried on the cool night air, and Jake could feel their world constricting around them. The man halted suddenly, pressing a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. They froze in place, hearts racing in sync as they listened to the telltale signs of nearby pursuit. It's just around the corner, the man whispered, glancing back. Stay close and trust me. Trust you? Angela's voice trembled, the disbelief evident. What do you even know about us or what we're running from? The man took a breath. Enough to realize you're caught in something bigger. For now, that's all I can say. Bigger? Jake echoed, disbelief filling his voice. What is bigger than a crazed man hunting us? I'll explain later. First, we need to go. They crossed a grimy threshold into another passage. The air felt thick, almost electric, with the urgency of their escape. Jake's stomach twisted with a mix of fear and the flickering hope that this stranger might actually be their lifeline. Suddenly, they stopped in front of an unmarked door, set back sharply from the street. The man pulled it open with a gentle push, revealing a dimly lit room. In here, he urged, ushering them through. Inside, the air was stale, filled with whispers of forgotten conversations. A lone light flickered above, casting long shadows against the brick walls. Jake felt the tension in the room shift as they entered. Who else is in here? He asked, scanning the space nervously. Just a couple of friends of mine, the man said, closing the door with a soft click. They can help you. A few figures moved in the shadows, but their faces remained mysterious and hidden. Jake felt his defensiveness rise, protective instincts flaring. I don't want to get ambushed. If this is a trap, stop. Clara broke in, her voice steady despite the fear tinging it. We need to figure out our next move, not argue. Jake felt a mix of pride and respect for her. She was right, they couldn't afford distractions. What is the plan? He asked, turning back to the man. Get you all somewhere safe, he said, his eyes momentarily flickering with a hint of urgency. And uncover the truth behind what's chasing you. The weight of those words settled over them like a heavy blanket, amplifying the tension. Jake's heart raced again. What truth? What would come crawling out of the darkness? Suddenly, the sound of footsteps thudded against the ground outside, too close for comfort. Panic ignited. They're right outside. Angela shouted, a tremor breaking through. Get down. The man urged, pushing them toward a cramped corner of the room just as the door rattled violently. Jake felt the breath catch in his throat. This wasn't just a bad night anymore, it was spiraling into a nightmare. As figures pressed against the door, intent on breaching their sanctuary, Jake realized that the night's chaos had only just begun. What do we do now? Clara's voice shook next to him, eyes wide with terror, Before the man could answer, the door flew open with explosive force. A pair of eyes peered in, searching. Then came the voice that solidified their fears, a familiar growl of the thick-set man they had just escaped. "Found you," he said, a dangerous smirk creeping onto his face. Jake's world tilted. Their nightmare was far from over. What did he really want? Just how deep did the conspiracy go? The heavy door swung open, revealing the thick-set man who had haunted their footsteps. His face twisted into a smirk that was equal parts satisfaction and menace. Behind him, shadows danced like predators waiting eagerly to pounce. Jake's heart thundered in his chest, his mind racing, trying to map out an escape. "Don't just stand there," the man barked, stepping into the room. He surveyed the cramped space, the flickering light casting ominous shapes over his features. "You think you can hide? This is just the beginning." The strangers in the corner stood motionless, holding their breath as thick tension wrapped around them. Jake felt Clara's fingers clasping his arm, her fear radiating through him. The urge to protect her, to shield them all from whatever was about to unfold, surged within him. The mysterious man, who had led them here, stepped forward. "You've made a mistake, Tobias," he said, his voice steady but low. "Every time you pursue them, you dig your own grave a little deeper." Tobias chuckled, the sound dark and foreboding. Such bold words for a man who was just trying to help these kids. His eyes glinted with malice. "But you forget who holds the power in this city." The tension suffocated Jake. Could they fight back? Could they reason with this man? Every instinct screamed at him to run, but the thought of leaving Angela and Clara behind to face this monster twisted his stomach. "We're not here for trouble," Clara managed to say, her voice trembling but defiant. "Just let us go." Tobias stepped closer, the space between them charged with hostility. "You really think it's that simple? You've seen things that can't be unseen. You know too much, sweetheart." The way he said the word sweetheart dripped with disdain, a calculated menace. Panic flared, igniting Jake's senses. As Tobias raised a hand to strike fear into their hearts, the man who had guided them here spoke again. "You won to win this time," he said, his voice cool but urgently insistent. "I've seen the consequences of your choices, and there's a line you're about to cross." Jake felt the suffocating fear cling to him like a wet blanket. The stakes had shifted. They weren't just fighting for their safety anymore. They were embroiled in something that could bring down an entire monster of a man. And maybe, just maybe, this stranger held the keys to their survival. "Enough talk," Tobias hissed, his tone dropping darkly. "You've got one chance to walk away. They die, or you come with me. What is it going to be?" Jake's mind raced. The pressure was unbearable. Every option felt wrong. Clara silently begged him with her eyes. Angela's gaze darted to the door like a trapped animal seeking an exit. They were running out of time, resisting the urge to crumble under the weight of the decision. Jake took a deep breath. "We don't want to go with you," he began, but the words died in his throat. Would the truth they uncovered damn them all? Suddenly, there was a loud crash from outside, shadows flickering as a commotion erupted. This was their chance. Action surged through him like electricity. "No!" he shouted. As chaos unfolded, they darted past Tobias, pushing through the door and into the uncertain night. But not before Jake caught a glimpse of the man who had led them to safety, shock pouring over his face. What had this man been hiding? Beneath the weight of night, they fled into the unknown, hearts racing, breathless. But deep down, Jake knew this wasn't over. They were tangled in a mess that ran deeper than any of them could be imagined. Would they make it out alive? What awaited them in the shadows ahead was still a mystery, one they could not escape so easily. The world they knew now felt like a mirage, cracking and splintering, while the truth lurked just out of reach in the dark. "Where do we go now?" Angela's voice sliced through the night air, desperation lacing her words. Before Jake could respond, heavy footsteps echoed behind them, closing the distance fast. They ran, but the question burned in Jake's mind. Would they be fast enough to shake off their nightmare, or had they stirred something far worse? The three of them sprinted through the narrow streets, the night's chill nipping at their skin. the pounding of their hearts merging with the sounds of chaos behind them. Jake's breath came heavy and fast. Adrenaline surged through him as they ducked into a hidden alley, the shadows engulfing them like a protective cloak. "Where do we go?" Clara's voice trembled, her eyes wide with fear. "We can't slow down," Jake replied, scanning their surroundings. He could feel Tobias' wrath soaking the night, a specter waiting to strike. "We need a plan. Somewhere safe." Angela nodded, taking a deep breath to steady herself, and, through the shadows, Jake spotted another narrow path. "Let us go down there." They turned sharply, the alley winding deeper, the echo of their footsteps the only sound in the thick quiet. Jake's mind raced through options, every decision rippling with consequences. "Jake," Clara's voice broke through his frantic thoughts. "Why did that man know you? Who is he?" The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "Angela," Jake said, focusing on Clara still. "He's part of my past. I thought I'd left all that behind." Angela's eyes darkened, reflecting the weight of betrayal. "You didn't run far enough." "Not yet," he admitted, guilt churning in his stomach. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted in the alley behind them. Jake turned sharply, his fists clenched. The hunt was on. Then came the shattering of glass, the distant howl of police sirens growing ever closer, mingling with the chaos. "Quick," Jake urged. They pressed deeper into the alley, passing beneath a flickering streetlight that filled the space with a dim glow. Clara squeezed his hand. "They'll find us," she whispered, fear merging with determination. "You have to tell me what's going on." "I'll explain everything," he promised, "but first we need to get somewhere safe. Just keep moving." They raced through the maze, Jake's heart pounding like a war drum, leading them to a dead end. A graffiti-covered brick wall loomed ahead. Panic surged within him. Was he going to lead them into a corner with nowhere to go? "Jake!" Clara shrieked, the edge of her voice echoing in his mind. "Wait!" he called back, urgently scanning for a way out. But behind the shouts, he spotted a small door partly hidden by debris. "There!" He rushed toward it, adrenaline silencing the dread clawing at his mind. He shoved it open, revealing a darkened room that smelled of dampness and dust. "In here!" Pushing Clara and Angela through, Jake followed and slammed the door shut just as footsteps came thundering down the alley. Crouched in the dark, the trio listened to the chaos outside. Sirens blared louder, the night alive with sounds of pursuit. Jake's heart raced. He needed to protect them at all costs. "They can't know we're in here," he murmured. "We'll wait it out." "What if they find us?" Angela's voice quivered. "They won't," he assured her, his tone firm. "Because I won't let that happen." For the first time, he felt a sense of clarity. He glanced at Clara, their eyes locking. "We will get through this together." Minutes passed, the tension thick like a fog. They could hear Tobias and his men fumbling through the alleys, searching for them. Jake wiped sweat from his brow, his resolve building against the uncertainty. Suddenly, the door rattled slightly. Jake's heart dropped. "Stay quiet," he breathed. Then, the noise stopped. They listened as uneven footsteps receded, leaving behind a heavy silence. "Maybe they left," Clara whispered, hope blooming in her voice. "I don't think so," Jake said, still alert. "We need to rethink our next step." A flicker of light broke through the shadows as a phone buzzed in Angela's pocket. Fear gripped them. This was it. "Turn it off," Jake hissed, but it was too late. The beam shot through the crack, illuminating their faces starkly. "What are we gonna do?" Angela's eyes darted to the door, then back to him, disbelief etched on her features. "We're trapped, no way out." Jake clenched his fists. The truth coursed through him, a revelation cutting through the dark. "No, we're not trapped. We can fight back." He drew a deep breath, recalling every ounce of his past, the lessons learned in shadows and blood. He glanced at the women, the fire in their eyes ignited by his words. "The way through is forward. You both got courage. Now I need you to trust me. We make our stand." Clara's face softened, "But how?" "Fight for what you want to protect," he replied. It wasn't just about living in fear anymore. It was time to reclaim control. They spent the next few moments conjuring a plan. Jake cataloged the room's contents, recalling anything they could use. When the door creaked open again, he stood ready, fists up, sometimes faith entangled with rage. "We're not hiding anymore," he whispered, heart racing. The door swung wide, revealing Tobias and his men, a cruel smile stretching across his face. "Thought you could escape?" he taunted. The moment felt suspended, adrenaline sparking an electric charge in Jake. Clara and Angela stepped forward beside him, hearts synchronized with fierce resolve. "No more running," Clara said, voice unwavering. Jake's insides ignited. "We're not afraid of you." A new chapter had begun unfolding in that dim room. They could feel the wave surging forward, a collective stand against the storm threatening to consume them. "Let us do this," Jake growled, and as they moved forward, they were no longer shadows in the diner. Each was now a light pushing back against the dark threatening to envelop them. It was time to fight. If you loved this story, you need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive tales we have in store. Hit that like button now to fuel our passion and support the channel you cherish. Don't leave comments about how this ending made you feel. Shout out your thoughts below. And for those truly committed to this journey, share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.